Hey everybody, it's Natalie Bencavanga and welcome. We are chatting about something really impactful that happened recently in the news around a Minnesota shooting. And to get a unique perspective, I am back with my friend and colleague, Sophia Zoe Kilmer. She is a civil rights activist and attorney and owns her own civil rights firm called Defend Trans Rights. Sophia, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, before we get into it, I just want to go into some of the details of the shooting that took place in Minnesota for people that may not know. Now, according to NBC News, there were two children, ages 8 and 10, who were killed, and 18 other victims who were injured when a shooter opened fire during a morning mass at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, as many as 18 others, including 15 children between the ages of 6 and 15, were injured. Three adult parishioners were also wounded. Um, Before we get into the details of the shooter, I just wanted to get your initial thoughts, Sophia, when you heard when this story broke.
It's that season.
Mm, that's literally what I thought of. I looked at the screen and I just thought, well, here we go again. I guess school must be in session. And it's interesting
It
to me
made
that
me think of, sorry.
no, go ahead.
It made me think of that absolutely tragic, and I'm going to repost it, honestly. That absolutely tragic PSA where they were, it was like talking about back to school, but they all started to be scrambling from
I
a,
know.
a active
Absolutely.
shooter. And it's horrific, but
Yeah.
this is what these kids deal with and live with because of our legislators' negligence, and it's just disgusting.
Yeah, and you and I are around the same age, and I remember when Columbine happened. I remember being in high school, and I naively thought
Yep.
that our government is going to fix this. This will never happen again. We will never have to deal with this again. And then when it didn't happen, and then when we saw shooting after shooting after shooting, and then we saw President Obama crying when 6-year-olds were gunned down in Sandy Hook, and I thought, well, this has to change things. These are first graders, and then nothing happened. And to me, I feel like we're stuck in this Groundhog Day from hell. And as a parent yourself, how does this feel for you on a personal level, not just from a legal level as an attorney, but just as a person with children yourself?
Like we the people aren't being listened to.
Mm. Hmm.
And it just feels like the NRA and the special interests are a lot more powerful and listened to by the legislators than, your actual voters. And I think that's tragic because I think that when you actually look across the line, there is strong bipartisan support within the voters
Yeah.
for common sense gun reform.
Yeah. Absolutely. And if nothing else, the fact that we can't seem to get the assault weapons ban reactivated after it lapsed under George W. Bush, to me, is just it's a moral failing on all of our parts. And speaking of which, we see this narrative play out over and over and over again across our schools, our places of worship, grocery stores, movie theaters, concerts. And it always does seem to go back to this idea of somebody who has access to a weapon, who should not have access to a weapon of mass destruction. And instead, with this particular story, the narrative has shifted because of who the shooter was. The shooter has been identified as Robin Westman, a 23-year-old who died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. That's what the police have said. Three firearms were recovered, and the police said that the shooter acted alone. They said that the shooter had disturbing posts on social media, but there was no evidence to suggest that the shooter was legally barred from purchasing a firearm. The shooter, many people on the right in particular, including the FBI Director Kash Patel, identified the shooter as male, but legal documents requesting a name change for Westman said she identified as female. And so this has opened a whole other set of issues, I think, in terms of gender and how we talk about gender in our communities. And Sophia, from your perspective, what are you hearing from within the community, and what has been brought to the forefront of this conversation in your mind?
The LGBTQ community in
Hmm.
relation to that.
Yeah,
I mean, I wish that I was, I could speak for everyone. I can speak for
sure.
myself.
Of course.
My thoughts are essentially, right now, currently, we really should be talking about the victims of this hateful act, which
Yeah,
are children.
thank you.
And instead, due to the facts being out there that this person, it appears that this person was a transgender woman,
Hmm.
and because of that, they want to, blame that identity
Hmm.
on this mass shooting. Well, my question would be, where's that same energy for the 97% of the other mass shootings that are committed by cis heterosexual white males?
Hmm.
Do you, as a population, then have the same sort of blame?
Hmm.
Because this is, in my opinion, scapegoating at its very corest level.
I think also when we're talking about an issue like this that now has this other social and cultural layer to it, this idea of misgendering someone because of an act that they committed or a crime that they committed, that just, in my mind's eye, just doesn't sit right with me because one has nothing to do with the other. And I think this speaks to the larger hateful rhetoric around the trans community. And to your point, allows them to then use this situation as a scapegoat to then pile on all the atrocities right on top of it and allow people to speak in the ways that they really want to be able to speak about the trans community or the LGBTQ community, but they didn't feel that they were allowed to. And this gives them that opportunity to behave in that way. What are your thoughts?
I thankfully don't go on the comment section of
Mm.
any right-wing pages or spaces in the internet, so I had not seen people relishing and,
Mhm.
dehumanizing this person just because they're trans. Like the
Right.
phobic comments, I haven't seen those online because I particularly wouldn't really be looking for them. But what I will say is I do follow a lot of media, and I have seen and tracked the difference between the way that the right wing media and the left and the center are even talking about this person posthumously.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, I really would just like to say that gendering someone correctly isn't about them.
Right.
It's about trans people and the community and the identity of trans people and not invalidating that identity just because of any outside force. I mean, like this person happens to be trans
Mhm.
and they also happen to be the person who committed this atrocity. I
Yeah.
don't think those are related on any sort of level whatsoever. But the right is going to take this opportunity, as they always do,
Mhm.
to talk about trans women in particular
Mhm.
as men.
Yes.
He, he, him, sir. This is everything they'll say. They'll never acknowledge the transgender identity except to invalidate it. And I hope at its very core, people will start to listen to what I'm saying. This is all about language. This is all about dehumanizing trans people in general.
Yeah.
This is a general issue. When we talk about sports and trans people from the right, it's always he is competing in this activity with girls. And what I wanted to say about that is it's because they want to paint us as disingenuous men,
Mm.
which is the meanest and most cruel thing you could possibly ever do to a trans person who has struggled with their gender identity for years.
Thank you for that. And I think my other frustration beyond all of the important points that you made is that this is really taking away from what happened, right? This allows them to deflect and talk about something like you said that's a different issue, that's an unrelated issue. The fact is somebody was opening fire through a window into a place of worship and murdered children as we start back in a new school year while children were praying. This to me is so vicious and abhorrent. And I think where I'm feeling concerned, and I welcome your thoughts on this as well, is I want to lead into the final point of this particular topic. They've started interviewing children um, in this case, and you don't see that as much when there is a shooting, even when there's shootings at a school. And so I just want to read a little bit from a firsthand account. This was from CBS News. Her name is June. She's a 9-year-old fourth grader, and she was inside the church, which is attached to the school building when the shooting happened. And she said, I heard the noise. I kind of got scared at first. She said, if like someone did a firework that didn't launch off in your ear, that's how loud it was. She said she was sitting in the back of the church with her teacher, her classmates, and her friends. She was scared if she would get hurt. She said, I was worried about everyone getting hurt and injured. Another boy talked about how his friend jumped on him to save his life and died in the process. These children are carrying now with them a level of grief that most of us will never understand. And personally, for me, I was disillusioned at the fact that they were being interviewed because of the fact that they are already dealing with this level of trauma. And then to have them relive it on camera at 9 years old felt to me like a new level of desensitization that we are experiencing in media. And I was just curious how you felt about that.
So first and foremost, I don't know why the position has changed,
Hmm.
but I will say that this child would never have been interviewed without the parents' permission.
Hmm.
And so what I think is that parent and that child really wanted to get a message out there
Hmm.
to basically catalyze and galvanize
Hmm.
a change. And
Hmm.
I found those children to be talking to be exactly what I needed to hear and the world needed to hear because they are the victims. And so often they go completely and totally silent in
Hmm.
this situation, if not like tragically passed away. And then their parents are usually the ones talking and advocating. I mean, the parent made the decision, and I personally am a creator who reposts things. I made the decision to repost the CNN thing of the child who was talking about Victor. I've
Hmm.
seen it at least 12
Yeah.
times. I'm not desensitized to it one bit. Every
Hmm.
single time it hits
Hmm.
the same. It is it is amazing. It is
Hmm.
something that I think every single parent should listen to.
Hmm.
And I think it's exactly what this country needs, which is to wake up.
Yeah.
Wake
Wake.
up to gun violence. Wake up to your children going to school every single day from
Hmm.
K to 12, being worried that they might be the next one on the news.
Mm.
Because guess what? I didn't grow up with that.
No, we didn't. We didn't.
I just didn't.
Mm-mm. And and I appreciate that perspective. And I also appreciate the point around it is time, long past time, that we wake up from a legal perspective, Sophia, with your work in defending human rights and understanding the need to defend humans against this kind of tragic display of violence in our communities. Do you think we will ever see change? I mean, we've been dealing with this for 20 plus years now, and every time it's thoughts and prayers. I mean, these kids were literally praying when this happened to them. So obviously, the time for talking is long past. What do you think will actually need to happen in order for us to pass sensible gun legislation and including that ban assault weapons from civilian use?
Fair and free elections in 2026, which reflect the plus 15 shift that I've seen across the board at every single
Mm.
governmental level. Um, that could lead to a supermajority, and I think that there would be at least that there would be pressure and a belief of the reinstating the assault rifle ban,
Amen
which
to that.
just really felt like common sense gun law, common law sense gun control at the time.
Yeah.
And I guess without realizing it, I grew up safer because of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I would also like to add to that that if we're going to be electing people who believe in gun safety and sensible gun laws, we should also be thinking about people that would like to overturn Citizens United and get, dark money out of our political system so places like the NRA have no place in our government anymore because they've had a stranglehold on this issue. I love how none of the other constitutional amendments matter, but gun rights, that's the one they're always very concerned about us having. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, don't even get me started on the First Amendment and how this
That's a whole other conversation,
I would
right?
agree with that. But I mean, the way in which we hold up gun rights,
Hmm.
there are certain elements that are, reasonable.
Sure.
I've waffled back and forth on my views, especially having lived overseas where they
Hmm.
didn't have any guns.
Hmm.
They still had some violence. They never had the same.
Hmm.
Um, Essentially, my true beliefs on the issue is that incremental change will be beneficial. And I mean, I'm definitely not in favor of like an all-out ban of firearms. I just don't
Sure.
think it's reasonable or practical.
Hmm.
But do we need these super weapons? I watched a Simpsons episode in the past. These super weapons are there to fight these super animals, like, that don't even exist, like lagras and stuff. And just, no, they're there to like kill children, apparently. And
Mm.
it's disgusting because
It's
these are
disgusting.
weapons of war that have no place in civilian society. And I don't understand it except that they're very, very expensive and
Hmm.
people like to own them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what it comes down to. And so I think once again, we have to be thinking about the collective and what's best for public health as well, and not just about individual liberty. Thank you so much, Sophia, for joining me to talk about such a difficult topic that is just so, so layered. If people want to learn more about you and your work, where can they go?
Oh, absolutely. You can go to defendtransrights.com to find out about me and my firm. They can also follow me on Instagram, Sophia Zoe Kilmer, um, 60,000 followers strong, and now, which is a really big milestone recently, and also Defend Trans Rights, which is a much more niche community. And I try to follow every single person back on there, especially people in my community. I really did start my account to connect with the LGBT community, the LGBTQ community.
Mhm.
And, Meta's made that hard, but I'm really enjoying the opportunity so far.
Well, I really enjoyed the opportunity of getting to know you and working together. It's just been so wonderful, and I appreciate the perspective that you bring and all of the knowledge that you bring as well. So thank you so much for being in conversation with me as always.
Thank you very much. And if I can say one last thing,
Of
I
course.
just would like to say, like, wake up. The 2026 elections are going to be here before you know it. Support the California situation, support the redistricting in your own areas. That's how you actually pass um, just real common sense gun safety.
Thank you for that.